Question: has that state of limbo that South Africa has found itself in over the past couple of days finally been lifted? We know now that the deadline for President Zuma to resign is today. The parliamentary caucus of the African National Congress also saying that a motion of no confidence is scheduled, is likely to go ahead tomorrow. It would be important to effect some amendments to the one that has already been proposed by the economic freedom fighters. We also know at this point that the rand has shot to a 2.5-year high on the strength of that announcement. Angela Fix, senior researcher here at ENCA, that state of limbo, then finally, after so much uncertainty, we have a little bit more clarity this lunchtime.
Certainly, and we've had a far more authoritative voice coming from the caucus of the African National Congress in Parliament than we had from the two officials who spoke at Luthuli House yesterday. They were absolutely unequivocal that they would institute a motion of no confidence, they would amend the existing one that is on the table by the EFF, and that come hell or high water, tomorrow will be the President of the Republic of South Africa, Jacob Zuma's last day in office if he doesn't resign tonight.
I want you to reflect on what is obviously a more muscular tone that is coming out of the ruling party.
My sense is that the African National Congress has decided in its caucus formation that it will do the work that the ANC-NEC has indicated is necessary. The issue of the letter that has been issued to the President to recall him has been done. We've heard from the Chief Whip that they've decided that that then mandates them, should he, since he has not responded, to institute everything that is possible to remove him tomorrow. The haste with which they're doing this, or the urgency with which they're doing, is precisely because of the limbo, as you've indicated, that we've lived in, with postponements and with the non-delivery of scheduled events from government and in Parliament.
So the ball is now firmly in Jacob Zuma's court. He can do two things. He can let this play out. The party obviously doesn't want that, or he can resign at any point today. Let's look at that possible scenario. Should he decide to resign, all of this then falls away.
So there are two metaphors that spring to mind. The one is he can defuse this particular bomb by simply resigning, and it would be a bomb should they have to remove him in this way, because it would speak to something inside the ANC that would have to be healed over the next few weeks and months ahead of an election campaign. The second metaphor that comes to mind is if this were a duel and they're staring one another down, the President and the party has just cocked its gun and is ready to draw, and he needs to decide whether he will withdraw from the duel and let the other party win without having the shots fired, or whether he will risk being kicked out tomorrow by having the party having to fire him.
All right, let's extend that metaphor of the duel then. One assumes then that if he has seconds in this duel, as was the case so many years ago, those seconds or emissaries would be talking to him right now saying, you cannot not resign today.
Well, that would be what they would presumably present him with, which is the party's interests must override whatever other interests are now in play. That the survival of the African National Congress ahead of an election is now paramount before any and everything else, because this is no longer just about government, it's also about a party. And if this party has self-interest at heart, as we have heard from the Treasurer General, it is in the ANC's court to decide how they're going to deal with the cadre who has defied their instruction.
So, assuming then that the motion of no confidence then goes ahead tomorrow, that would no doubt start at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Again, all parties within specific time frames have an opportunity to present, whether it's by secret ballot or not. We know precedent has been set in that respect. We would have a vote, say, by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Jackson Mthembu, the chief whip of the ANC, also suggesting that it is not beyond the realm of possibility to have a State of the Nation tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, done and dusted by the weekend.
Depending on the availability of the Chief Justice, who would have to swear in a new president, the nomination.
Does it have to be the Chief Justice?
The Chief Justice could nominate another judge to stand in his place, but chances are, given the gravity of the situation, Mogoeng might want to be there, precisely to get this handover done smoothly, because we don't want further instability to kick in by people questioning the legitimacy of this. All arms of the state, executive, legislative and judicial, now have to come together, because it is the stability of the republic that is at stake, no longer just the ego, humiliation, dignity of one man. This really is a moment in which the parliamentary caucus has indicated that for the ANC caucus in Parliament, it is now the organisation over the individual.
One's got to assume now that as Jackson Mthembu, the chief whip of the ANC, leaves that caucus meeting and then heads to a meeting of the chief whips, top of his agenda, given given that the motion of no confidence might go ahead tomorrow, he will now be talking to the economic freedom fighters about bringing amendments to their proposal of a motion of no confidence. What would they need to amend in that respect, simply to get in front of the queue?
So what's likely to happen is the EFF will table their motion, and the ANC will then offer amendments to the motion live during that session, and then there will be a vote on that. There has to be agreement between the parties that this will not become a matter of contention, because if the agreement is that Jacob Zuma has to go, the ANC's interests must be, as the majority party, driven through, and so it would not be in the interests of the opposition to want to play some sort of elaborate game of one-upmanship in these negotiations. If the end game has been agreed to, it might be in the interests of all concerned, for Parliament and its business, for all of the people's representatives to have a multi-party agreement to proceed rather than to play political games.
Hovering in the wings of the Newsday set is Devin Murrigan. We'll bring him in just a moment to talk about the economic implications of all of this. I did mention that it has had an instant effect on the currency, but does this bring the certainty, does it end the anxiety now that South Africa has been feeling for the past fortnight or so? That point was made very clear by both Paul Mashatile, the TG, and Mthembu.
I think it relieves some of the tension, and so it indicates that there is indeed a way forward. But I don't think we're out of the woods yet. We have come to the edge of a crisis as the post-apartheid Democratic Republic of South Africa, and we need to take some very important lessons from this moment. We cannot find ourselves here again. We cannot be held to ransom by one particular person's desire or need for or reasoning around power. What is absolutely crucial here is this is not a proud day for all of us. This is a day that we need to think and learn lessons from.